Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Divided Films, the podcast that looks at movies that audiences and critics do not agree on, and we take a side. With me, as always, is my co-host, Keith.
Hello!
And joining us again today, returning to the podcast, is our great guest, Bridget. Welcome back.
Hello, hello. Glad to be back.
Really glad to have you back again on the podcast and excited to talk with you today about our next Divided film, which is appropriate for the Halloween season, the 1996 horror movie or spooky movie. We'll see. The Craft, directed by Andrew Fleming. This movie falls into the category of having a negative score with critics and a mixed to positive score with audiences. On Rotten Tomatoes, 57% of critics approved and 65% of audiences approved. So like an 8% difference there, but still on different sides of the fence. And the critics' consensus: The Craft's campy magic often overrides the feminist message at the film's core, but its appealing cast and postmodern perspective still cast a sporadic spell. So there is the take there on The Craft. I think the key word in that consensus, for me at least, is campy. This movie definitely is going for a vibe, and I'm all about it personally. But let's see what your takes on it is, guys. If you have any experience with this movie, or if it's your first time seeing it, let's start with Bridget. What was your take on this movie, and let me know if if you're a first timer to this.
Sure. So I had not seen this movie as a teenager. I saw it very, very recently, and I'm actually really surprised to hear reception was so mixed. I thought it was great. In fact, watching it took me right back into being a high school girl, and I think the movie is very smartly able to do that. I was really impressed. The aesthetics are great. The acting is pretty good. It's just a fun time. I loved it.
Yeah, I think it's really fun too. I think this movie knows what it's doing. It's definitely going for, I don't know, it can be seen as maybe like a time capsule movie, but at the same time, it's still relatable with the high school feel to it, right? It's definitely 90s, but at the same time, it can be a little bit relatable to, 2000s, early 2010s high school, not too long after. What about you, Keith? What was your take?
This is my first time. I knew the general idea about The Craft. I knew, it's worthy of being a cult film. I do grant it that. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not. It's good. It's kind of good, but it's not bad. I think the word for me in the review, in the consensus, is sporadic. To go off on your points, I think, I think the cast is great. I think Fruza Balk gave it 100%, they earned their MTV Movie Award for Best Fight. I think they did. And
it's funny you mentioned MTV, because a lot of it does feel like a music video at times, especially the opening credits and some of the other sequences. If something's in slow-mo and with the soundtrack and everything, it did feel very pop culture, alternative rock kind of vibe going on. And again, I'm all about that.
That was a total plus. The rock punk music at the beginning, I was like, I am for this. I hope the movie has just nonstop punk musical numbers.
I would have been shocked if this movie didn't have movie. I feel like all scary teen movies in the mid to late 90s had a good alternative punky pop soundtrack.
Yeah, well, they want them kids to come in to see the movie,
and
right?
And they came out. This was I feel like this was a fun time Friday night, and I think this is a good movie for it's a cult movie because of Gen Xers. This is tailor-made for them.
Yeah. It was a modest success, right? I mean, it had a relatively small budget, which you can definitely tell. It was a modest budget.
There's a certain charm to that, though, I think. And no pun. I mean, it's hard not to find the pun in that, and I knew I was going to go into it going pun it
Yeah, no, I get you, man. Like, I do agree. It is charming, pun intended for me. And
It's a
there
perfectly
is something.
crafted teen movie, if you ask me.
There
It
you
it
go.
puts a spell on you.
Oh man, we can go all day about this. It's true. And the other thing about the fact that it's lower budget, there's something unassuming about it, and it does feel like a bit authentic, at least for the time. So I do appreciate there's a bit of like, I don't know, sincerity to it. I don't know. It's weird. Again, like the fact that it is charming and the fact that it is low budget, I do really dig it. And I think with the sporadic element, though, with that word in the consensus, it can be definitely inconsistent at times, and there's definitely some hokey moments to it. But I feel like that just comes with the territory. You're gonna get some eyebrows raised throughout the movie and this kind of thing. I'd be disappointed if there wasn't. There's times where I'm kind of making fun of the movie, but at the same time, I feel like that's kind of intended. Like, you're meant to laugh at times. It's not meant to be like a super scary movie about witches. It's kind of more meant to be a lighter, slightly edgy ride.
I, I will say, first of all, I do think they spent most of their budget on the like cockroach and snake effects at the end. Now that was
Ugh,
like the most
yeah.
terrifying scene.
Those animal trainers made off that day.
Oh my gosh,
Well, they
yeah.
put they put maggots in a toilet. I'm like, okay, in the movie that's just an hallucination, but from a production standpoint, they really had to put them in there. And you know, I tip my hat to the crew for doing that and getting their hands dirty, because I mean it was cool and it was effective, but ugh.
Oh, and the actresses had to have like snakes around their feet and like I think rats drop on the main girl at one point. It's like, oh, this really is a horror
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. That in the end, when it really picks up, it's just like wild animals running loose throughout the whole house there, and I thought that was effective. You know, it gives you the chills again, it kind of in a fun way, not in like a way that makes me super disturbed, but it's kind of like a fun thrill. Like, oof, like you can cringe a little bit, but also laugh at yourself at the same time.
Definitely.
And you know, in terms of the cast, the standout actress, obviously, if I don't like totally butcher her name again, Fairuza Balk.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, I feel like she was like born to be in this movie. This is like the
Yes.
perfect part for her. She
Oh my
totally
God, yeah.
nails it. And sure, it's over the top, but it has to be.
She honestly should have gotten an Oscar nomination. I hate to say it, but she brought this like crazy intensity. Like I was so scared the scene where she starts floating after that jock guy and like psychic pushes him out the window. And but she also brings like this vulnerability to it where if she didn't, then
Yes,
I wouldn't have cared about this character at all.
I totally agree. There's something about her where like I feel like there was everyone had that girl at school, that kind of girl that always kind of had this chip on her on her shoulder, and kind of was always mean to everyone. But you can kind of tell it came from a place of pain, and she's totally channeling that sort of person. So I totally agree. Even though she is like definitely very bitchy throughout the movie and maniacal, there is something sympathetic about her that does make you invested in her character. So, and that's totally, I give credit to the actress on that.
And she has this charisma where at the beginning I kind of want the main
Yeah.
girl to join this girl crew. You know, like they seem like super cool. They like what they like. They're the cool outsiders. They dress really cool and like they have this charismatic leader. And of course, that's like what I liked about the writing of the movie. It is such a like the dangers of being a teen girl and falling into the wrong crowd just because they look cool, just because they act like they don't care, doesn't mean that they're the group you should end up with. It's like this movie is total cheese, it's total camp, but some of the stuff in here is so relatable that the writers had to have cared to put that in there.
Yeah, I think they're definitely drawing from relatable experiences and just heightening it to obviously a level of like witches.
Oh yeah. Plus, like, which teen girl didn't secretly want to be in a witch coven?
It seems kind of cool, right? I mean, first of all, it starts off that they're just like girlfriends. I mean, there's a few scenes of them just like having sleepovers and eating ice cream and stuff. You know, it's very light in the beginning, and then it very quickly, you know, all of a sudden they're sacrificing animals on a beach. It does like get pretty crazy pretty quickly. But again, I'm amused by that.
The minute you get involved with Satan, things go downhill. Or was
Satan
it
or
Satan? Who knows?
what
But
they Moro.
On, I think. Manon?
They said it with like a weird accent or something. I'm not sure, but I get a sense that it's some sort of vague pagan Wiccan sort of mythology that they're going off of. And again, I feel like any sort of girl that wants to be rebellious maybe have thought of like, I'm going to be a Wiccan or something.
uh,
It's a very vague sort of thing to identify with if you're just going off of the cliche surface level lifestyle.
have either of you met a Wiccan?
Oh well,
Are we gonna?
wait.
I don't know. I remember meeting my first Wiccan during a summer program, and I had no idea what I like. Like I
Well,
was
again, I
like,
feel
oh,
like
I'm
it's
a
a
Gemini.
phase.
I'm a Gemini. Like it's
I feel like for a lot of teen girls, it's a phase where they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm gonna believe in this very misunderstood belief system because it'll piss off my Christian parents." I guess I think that was the thing.
I mean, I actually had friends in high school who did become Wiccan, and they were super into astrology. They wore a lot of black. Uh, they bought crystals. I mean, it's I don't know. A lot of it seems a little hippie-ish, but I'm sure had a grimoire or whatever. I mean, they like to talk about nature spirits. Like it's an interesting
yeah.
feminist, I guess, sort of fun.
It's it's like like a splash of goth meets hippie meets like hocus pocus.
Yeah, it's an interesting combo because hippies are all about nature but they also really like bright colors, tie dye, and then goth is like all about black. So it's not a very intuitive combination. I mean, the lady in the witch shop, like the older witch who's warning the younger witches against their ways, she definitely came off as a hippie. I mean, this lady is like of the woods or something. And I got such a kick out of her witch shop because it was so generic and cliche. Just candles everywhere and dark lighting and stuff. I mean, I'm not complaining again. If I'm the designer of this set, that's how I'm gonna make it. It's so hokey. It's something out of I don't know, like like a generic haunted house or something.
It is better that you should rush upon this blade than enter this circle with fear in your heart. How do you enter? With perfect love and perfect trust. That's a girl. As above, so below.
Why do they have like the books that you shouldn't read out in display? I always
Right. If
wondered about
she
that
doesn't
in
want
like
anyone to
bookstores.
buy them, why is she like
She's like,
selling them?
that's
She
too
doesn't want...
advanced for you. Well, it's only 1999, so like I gotta make
Yeah.
overhead here. Like,
It's so
Yeah,
powerful,
maybe.
teenage witches can find it.
Right, and like make mistakes and go crazy at the end. I mean, maybe she should put the more advanced books behind a glass with a lock, like you might see at a Walgreens or something, and someone has to come along and unlock it for you. And like, okay, like I think you're advanced enough for this.
If it's good enough for a Walgreens.
I did like that older witch lady though, because she does give them pretty good advice, and she does make sense of the whole mythology about how, oh, there's no dark magic or light magic. It's just magic, and it's like nature. It's good and bad. It's loving and cruel. But then the witches are so snotty. They're like, we don't know what you're talking about, lady. I'm like, it seems pretty straightforward to me.
That's like kind of
as teen girls
typical.
do.
I was like going to say typical teen girl behavior.
Right? It's like, we're going to do what we want. We're going to cast spells and get revenge because we're so cool.
I actually did like how that older witch lady was such a hippie because it was such a contrast to these hyper goth teen girls, and kind of shows early on that maybe they aren't getting it, like they aren't there for the right reasons.
Exactly. They're kind of like power mad, right? They're power hungry, but they're definitely it's like, for example, the first invocation scene on the beach, which I mentioned before. Like that's like a wild scene. There's like storms. She gets struck by lightning, the Nancy character, and she's like, it drives her crazy. Like there's a definitely noticeable shift in her character after that scene, and it drives her mad with the power. Whereas towards the end of the movie, when the Sarah character does the invocation, it's more like you can tell how she's more tapped into the true nature of what she's doing, and the god or whatever it is that she's taking her powers from. There's the different maturity levels there. So I thought that was actually something I thought was smart about the movie. How the two characters are so well defined and how they invoke their powers in two different ways and how it works out for one and not the other.
Definitely. Along the same lines, I just like clothing wise, the Veruca Balk character has such harsh, like all black lipstick, like spiky collar. And from the beginning, the main witch has this like very vaguely cottagecore kind of thing going on. It's
cottagecore. I like that.
Thank you. Just kind of like showing that she is like more in touch with nature, and she is the chosen one. Also in that invocation scene on the beach, that was a really cool visual, having all those whales wash up, and then Veruca Balk flips out. That is such a great moment.
That's so funny because she's like, oh, these are his gifts for me. Can you imagine one of those beachgoers just seeing this crazy goth girl like going head over heels for a bunch of dead sharks? There will never be a scene like that again in a movie.
Definitely not.
I would have been like, I've seen crazier. I was surprised. I think one thing that made me laugh kind of at the movie was how nonchalant they were about like a homeless guy walking, like, hey, get out of here.
Oh.
Get out of here.
Did they ever even reference that?
Crazy.
Like after that happened?
Oh, yeah, because first of all, that guy shows up 30 seconds into the movie. He like just opens the door to this girl's house in the suburbs, just a homeless guy holding a snake. And what is he even saying? He's like, here, you want this snake? It's like, what? Who are you? And where did you come from? And then he shows up 10 minutes later in downtown LA holding a snake again. Like, where is he getting these snakes in the middle of LA? And then he gets this, when you see him get run over by a car, it is like brutal. They show his head going under the wheel. I was like, dang, I did not expect that level of violence coming from this movie. I thought that was, I don't want to say like out of character in a negative way, but it was definitely surprising given the tone that most of the other scenes have.
It is so shocking, but there are a couple like really wild scenes in this movie. So that is a good, like very shocking, like, oh, this isn't just going to be your average teen intense drama. Some heads are going to roll.
For sure. Literally. Yeah, you're right. Because the other, yeah, you're right. I mean, that maybe actually be a smart move on the movie's part to maybe lull you in and think, okay, like new girl at school, here are your typical beats that you normally see in these teenage dramas, and then like bang, like this guy gets just his head run over by like a truck, and then okay, like we're in for maybe something else than we had thought we were.
Mm-hmm.
Serpent of old, ruler of deep, guardian of the bitter sea, show us your glory, show us your power. We pray of thee, we pray of thee, we invoke thee.
This movie fully commits to the bit, which I do give it, which puts it into like, I realize that we're the deciding factor on this movie. Like it's on the line and it's up to us. But I was also surprised, and we kind of mentioned it before, I was pleasantly surprised at the messages in this movie, and be careful what you wish for. Great power comes great responsibility, but also like no friends is better than toxic friends. I think you
like
mentioned that before. I was like, oh yeah.
I like that she doesn't forgive the two witches at the end when they come to apologize. It's like, of course I'm not going to forgive you. You tried to murder me. Like, get out of here. I like that a lot because I think
bad.
Right,
right.
Bad.
There's too many. You get away with so much with our bad.
There's too many movies where characters forgive each other so easily, and I'm glad, and that's part of the development of this main character, Sarah, that she is so nice and kind of goes along with the crowd, and now at the end, when she really taps into her full potential, she is going to say no to these toxic friends, and she's going to stand on her own. And so, in another sense, like I don't know, I'm actually, the more I think about it, the more impressed I am with how much they put into the arc of these characters.
Yeah. And I mean, just seeing I know I keep talking about the Faruka Bulk character, but at the beginning, you think she's so cool. She's actually kind of nice. I mean, she has that tough facade. And then you just see these moments of her just breaking throughout the entire movie. And then, of course, she ends up in an insane asylum at the end. I will say
Right.
stuff I wasn't as impressed with. I did think the two friends, their characters weren't as fleshed out in a way where I didn't get why they sided with Faruka Balk so easily, and then like why they turned so bad so quickly just because the power went to their heads. I mean, I guess it was supposed to be like, well, they're not meant to have this power, unlike this main protagonist. But then they weren't even sorry, really, at the end of the movie. So I think they weren't fleshed out quite as well.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of got a better sense from the Nev Campbell character, who had the scars, because once she removes her scars and she's now like wildly more attractive. I mean, she carries herself more attractively, I guess, or more confidently, I should say. I can see like that kind of made sense that now she's becoming now more arrogant. Now, you know, she goes from a very self-conscious character, and now again she's kind of letting the power go to her head, and she's seeing the effect she has on guys. So I could see that a little bit more, how the power's going to her head, and how she maybe wants to like hold on. We'll go with the Faruka Balk character Nancy. I definitely was not as convinced with the Rochelle character, because she was showing guilt for what she had done to her bully with the hair falling out thing. And so, yeah, I was like, she seemed to be more level-headed. Why is she now going along with this murderous plot
I think
that
I
Nancy's
can.
going?
I think I can. If I remember correctly, and as this movie's lawyer, there was a part when they're in the house, and I am kind of okay with the amount of development that they did get for this kind of movie. I thought it was as good enough as we're gonna get. But there was a moment in the climax when they're running through the house and they come across a mirror, and the scars and the balding come back like tenfold, and I think it's like, oh, we kind of have to double down on this, or else we will, this will be our life. Maybe I could be totally wrong. I could have even dreamt that, but
I think it was the protagonist, she showed them visions of what's going to happen if they continue to attack her. So that was actually like inspiring them to not be evil.
okay.
Yeah, I kind of get a same interpretation as you, Bridget, where that was her showing the two of them. That's the Sarah, the main character, showing those two more supporting characters, like the road they're on is going to lead them to this. Again, like, what you put out is going to come back to you threefold. It's, what comes around goes around sort of thing, but it's more so like the kind of energy you put out, that's going to surround you. So if you're going to use magic in an evil way, in a dark way, you're just surrounding yourself with bad energy, and that will affect you as well. So I kind of, I buy that, and maybe again it takes a little more credit on an audience member to draw that conclusion. I'm not sure if we're giving that a little too much credit.
I thought you were talking about the two friends of Skeet Ulrich, who had I don't know. I mean, hey, I'm happy Breckenmeyer finds work. I guess from like the mid to late 90s, there were those types of movies. Like I think Scream also came out this year, which is 96.
Yeah, with Nev Campbell
and Skeet Ulrich. And
right, yeah, both of them, yeah.
I kept going, like, I feel like I know what they're trying to make this add to the movie, but like they're the two goofy best friends. They're Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of this movie.
Well, Breckenmeyer is essentially the same exact character he played in Clueless the year prior. He's got the same haircut.
It's all the same universe. It's all the same.
It's just so funny to me. It's just, okay, like every 90s teen movie has to have the skateboarder dude who just makes jokes out of everything, and that's that.
Isn't he in the boy band that dies in the Josie and the Pussycats?
Josie and the Pussycats. Yeah, he's in the beginning of that. Yeah, that was early 2000s. And he was in, I don't want to make this a Breckenmeyer conversation. He's a minor character in this
movie. That's our other podcast, Breaking Bread with Brecken.
Say that 5 times fast.
Can I be a guest on that one too?
Oh, absolutely. We'll go because he's only in so many movies. We have to do an episode on each scene.
And our
he's in.
Garfield episode comes out this Monday.
Brilliant. Rat Race will be the week after that.
All right, but yeah, no, they
so-
didn't need to be in the movie. I kind of get why, but I don't think they added. So they went there with Skeet Ulrich. I was not expecting that.
I feel like the two like the two dumb guys, they basically serve as like what the whole student body is perceiving these witches as. So like they make fun of them in the beginning, they go along with the cruel jokes, and then they're impressed with like the Bonnie character after she becomes more attractive. Da da da. You know what I mean? Like they're basically just like the sample poll.
They round out the cast. They help. I mean, there are just 3 awful jock characters / like a jock with the skater friends. They do, you know, you got to have folks round out the cast. It can't be a school of just one bad jock. There's got to be 3.
Right.
I will say I did find all those characters just awful. I was kind of happy when the jock got pushed out the window.
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, they definitely were building that up from the beginning when he tells that awful rumor about the main character that... Right, and then I was like, oh, why is she still into him? But then, yeah, when he was so mean to her, and then it's like one of those things where, oh, this guy's a jerk in the beginning. This is, I guess, like a scary horror movie, like whatever the genre is. It's like not totally horror, but whatever it is, he's gonna have his comeuppance later on. It's probably gonna be a nasty death, and it was.
I didn't think. I mean, I thought at least like I'm not saying like a pie in the face, haha. Like, but I wasn't expecting death. But it does go there with the idea of like the love spell. I was kind of shocked that like, oh shit, like.
I like how they do the love spell because he basically turns into a mindless drone. He's just like he becomes a sycophant basically, just trying to say whatever he can to please this girl whose spell he's under, and that I think shows how a love spell is kind of not as fulfilling as earning love like in a genuine way, you know, where like it's someone who actually likes you or understands you. If you just cast a spell on someone and they're just like a mindless zombie following you around, like what fun is that?
Yeah, and she definitely learned that pretty quickly. I will say, even though he is kind of a mindless drone, I find it interesting. It seems like he did maintain some of his cruel personality. I mean, when he like attacks her during the date, if he were just a mindless drone, he would have just like followed her around and it's like and said like I'll win your love or I'll do it. Like if she says no, he'd be like I'll do whatever you want, baby. So I mean, maybe the writers just put that in there because they wanted it to be edgy, but I like to think they did it to like say something about the way the magic worked in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't totally erase his whole personality. Maybe it strips him down to his more primal sort of characteristics. You know, like he's going to resort to violence to get what he wants, that sort of thing. I was a little nervous though because in that scene when they're in the car and then he attacks her and she has to run away, I was a little nervous that one could interpret that scene as, oh, he is going to force himself on her and it's her fault. I did not want that to be a possible reading of that scene because yes, she does cast a spell on him and that is why he's resorting to such lengths, but
that's a good point.
I don't want, that's the thing. I was a little nervous about that, but going off what you're saying, Bridget, like it's still that character, it's still the man who is the aggressor because even though he's under a spell, he at his core is a selfish, violent person who would resort to that. So, spell or no spell, it's a reflection on him as a person and not the person who cast the spell on him. So again, that's like the one part I thought we're a little in dicey territory here over how you can interpret that scene.
Well, I think since the movie, that's a great point. I hope that because the movie punishes him with death, that is this is all on him, because if he just got a pie in the face and lived, then maybe that wouldn't have been the message.
Right, exactly. Like, it's again kind of like an interesting line that they're walking because his death, it is like a murder. Like she the Nancy character, the evil witch, it is wrong that she kills him, right? but at the same time, he's a character that does deserve some sort of comeuppance. Which in that scene is so interesting to me because it is scary because they build up that scene pretty well. The way that the Faiza Bolt character, her feet start to float on the floor as she drags towards him, and basically what they do,
she's like moving her head around.
Basically, in this scene, and then also in the end when she's attacking the main character Sarah, there's just a lot of close-up shots of the Faiza Bolt character, just like close-ups of her face as she's like wailing at the camera, right? And it's really effective because she has like, the way they make her in her face and her eyes, it is like really scary. She's really good for this. I'm surprised she wasn't more of a scream queen because she has such a good face for horror. It's so expressive and her eyes are so piercing.
She's so perfect in this movie, and especially that scene. Like the torment that she has within her, that she puts into this character. Oh, so good.
That was the one thing though I thought was, and then plot wise, here's an eyebrow raise. It's a really effective scene. The way they build it up, and the guy goes flying out the window. I thought that all worked really well. But then it ends so abruptly. Like he falls out the window. The main character Sarah screams in horror, and then it just cuts to her the next morning, like crying over the situation. It's like, wait a minute, like. First of all, they're clearly in the room that he was clearly thrown out of the window of. So there's a little bit of exposition like, oh, we talked to the police about it. Well, like, hello, he was thrown out a window and these two girls were in the room. Like, I would think that they would be taking it a little longer for questioning about it. Obviously, they'd be the main suspects, like magic or none.
They just start getting into their magic.
These people aren't affected by homeless people walking into their houses. They're not going to be affected by sudden death.
I guess so. They established that early on.
Really? Look in your eyes tells me you might not be so sure. After all, you have every reason in the world to do it. I mean, you killed Chris, and you killed your mom. You killed your mom when you were coming out of her. Now that is really special. Even I couldn't go that low. Bravo! Stop it, please!
What's the deal? Why doesn't she use magic on us?
Because she's weak!
So yeah, that was like one eyebrow raise. And then, some of the other, the ways they use magic, some of it is effective. And other kind of ways are a little sillier. Like the way that, I think Neve Campbell recognizes that Sarah is a witch is her spitting a pencil on her desk, which is like not the most impressive thing in the world. I would think it's just someone doing a trick, but she's immediately like, oh, she must be a witch because she's like spinning a pencil on her desk.
I like that though, because it was so subtle and it was a good way to demonstrate at school how you're a witch. And plus it kind of showed that the Neve Campbell character is kind of tuned in and she's on the lookout for certain things. And so to see that, and it's also something no one else would have noticed except these like witchy girls. So I thought that was a kind of clever choice.
That's a fair point. I think I would have liked it if like they showed a quick little moment of maybe like the pencil levitating by just like a tiny inch or something like that. But you're right. She's looking out for, she even says she's looking for the fourth person. She can feel their fourth person. They're going to meet them soon. Because if it was me, I'd be like, oh, that's a cool little parlor trick there. Spinning a pencil on its top.
She just takes a quarter out of your ear like, oh,
it's our fourth.
Oh my God. No, I don't even know why. I feel like I'm, in my head, I probably should be giving this movie a higher score. I am going to pass it. I don't know what I'm going to give it exactly. Because it does follow the beats, or at least where the story takes us very well. Like, I think it's fun, the sleepover that they have. I'm enjoying that. And I can see why girls who really enjoy this movie enjoy, like, the look at my hair, it's blonde. You're not a good blonde. All right. And I, the fun of, having fun with Satan in the beginning. And then, the more
it's Manon.
The more you, yeah, you know what? He goes by many names. I mean, who else could it be? I feel like they tried to not piss off '90s Christians that much, but I don't think they were gung ho about this movie to begin with.
Well, they say
Uh,
they say it's not Satan. I mean, the analogy that they give is that, oh, if God and the devil have been fighting or were playing
oh
football,
yes,
then Manon is the stadium. So like he is the actual universe. Why has it got to be a he? Why can't it be she? If this is like these girls coming together and everything, why does it have to be a
he's
guy?
Satan's cousin then. Like he's not like he's the monkey's paw.
He's
It's this idea like okay, I'll remove your skin. I will get back at Christine Taylor. I will. I love the character development, or I completely understand why Fairuza Balk was her horrid life. Like every decision that she made sense
right.
to me, and uh, yeah, no, I mean, even though those characters were maybe up, like it's terrible, but they, caricatures. Like I get it. I'm not really like
Well, yeah.
angry about it.
Well, because like for
Uh,
example, Fairuza Balk's character, she goes up in a trailer with like I guess
yeah,
a stepdad and her mom is such a cartoonish white trash character. I mean, from the hairdo to the outfits and everything. She's only in a few scenes, but I was like, man, this lady could not be a more over the top character if they tried. That was kind of crazy. Yeah, just like there's a couple other examples of just these one-dimensional characters who are there just to be sort of obstacles, or they're more like set pieces than actual supporting characters.
It comes to mind is that awful racist blonde cheerleader
Yeah, Christine
who's
Taylor.
yeah.
who's just like, I don't like you because I'm racist, and
She's so upfront about it. And that's why I thought that was so interesting when the Rochelle character finds her in the shower crying because all her hair's fallen out and everything, and she's just like, what did I do to deserve this? And I'm like, hello, you're very upfront about how racist you are. At least be like, I don't
You
know how this is happening, but I guess this is what I get for being a racist.
you called her a quote unquote negroid, which I like.
Which,
Like I can't even imagine the writers going like, well, like that was such a weird like
that was a weird line, and that also comes back
weird
to
line, like it's just I'm not saying go more racist, but it was just like
well, I mean, that's
there's
not
just
even
like
like
of all the things to call a person.
it's such an unnatural line to say if you're gonna have a bully with racist motivations for her cruelty. I don't know. I don't get me wrong. Subtlety is not what this movie is going for, and I'm not saying that it should be more subtle in any regard, but at least come up with something out of a natural line to say, because that was so bizarre. I don't know how Christine Taylor delivered that line with a straight face, because it was just strange to me. It was like it was written in another language and translated literally.
it would just it seems like it was written by a white person being like, I bet this is what racism is like.
Right? Like, and the idea of like a racist person being so upfront about their racism, also in Los Angeles, in like the LA area, like, oh, right, this is acceptable, right? And especially in the liberal capital of the world, right? People are okay with this, which, I mean, other people overheard that and didn't say anything. I don't know. I don't know if she had to be racist. She just had to be like a mean bully that's enough, at least for me as a viewer, that would justify a witch wanting to get revenge.
It was also
Yeah.
interesting that the Rochelle character, her damage that inspires her to like worship Manon and be with the loser kids is this one blonde bully. It seems it's.
Right.
I mean, she had some like mean friends, but it wasn't the same as the jocks. There's like a bunch of them and they're all awful. But with Rochelle, there was this one mean person, and her entire wish was for this chick to, I don't know, get comeuppance.
Right. That's I'm going back to, I think she's the least developed character, because even in the beginning when Sarah is talking to the guy Chris and they're looking over at the clique of the three girls, it's like, oh, Nancy, she's like she's a whore, and he says, "Oh, like Bonnie, she's got like scars," and they don't even say anything about Rochelle. I was like, "Well, what?
Oh yeah.
Why is she an outcast?" And you're right. Her motivation is like not really fleshed out, except the fact that I guess she's just friends with the other ones. So that's kind of a shame because I like that. I thought the actress was doing a pretty good job, but I didn't really see why she was doing what she was doing, or why she, like what we're saying basically. I wish they gave her a little more attention.
If I had to guess, I do not think that the part was written for a black woman. And when they casted this actress, I bet it was a bully situation, and they're like, and because the movie does feel like those scenes, like, all right, we're uncomfortable filming these scenes just as much as you are uncomfortable watching them. We're gonna try to get past this. I do think that like that was that's what they thought was character development,
Right.
the racial aspect of it.
Right.
If
Which
I
is
had to guess.
and it's such a mismanaged like handling of that subject matter that you're right. It does seem like almost like an afterthought, basically, because it could be very compelling to have this character experience racism at her school and have that be a struggle for her. And yeah, if that is the true reason why she's an outcast, then yeah, like I totally buy why she would go with these other outcasts and feel pain and anger, and that would draw her into this this witch cult, basically, this craft, this coven.
Even the way she's just styled. I mean, the other two outcasts, they kind of like they give Nev Campbell greasy hair and they have her hunch over, and Bruce Bulk, she has a really intense like hair and makeup and really intense clothing, and then Rochelle, she looks normal and she acts really normal, and it's just kind of like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, I was like, what? Because I mean, to me, she was very stylish. I was watching this movie. I'm like, oh, I kind of like her outfits that she's wearing in this. Like, I don't know. You're right. She seemed like very well adjusted, and so that kind of goes against the idea of outcasts who resort to witchcraft. So that's again, it's a shame because I thought the actress did a pretty good job given her maybe like lacking of material. But it's like what an hour and a half movie. It's a pretty tight movie, so I think that maybe if they gave themselves a little more breathing room, they could have had something that was more fleshed out for her.
I'm happy with what we got. I'm happy it wasn't like this movie does not need to be 2 hours.
No, and I mean not 2 hours, but you're right. Because the other thing too is, given the style and tone of this movie and what it is doing, I don't know if it could get away with it what it is doing for 2 hours. I think the fact that they keep it tight is smart, but at the same time, you do have to sacrifice some development along the way, and this is what happened.
I know they made a sequel like a couple years ago. I heard it sucks. I don't think a movie like this warrants a sequel. I don't think this movie was. I don't think this movie, or every cult movie, is due for a sequel. But my question with all of that, and I was wondering this the other day, is aside from Clueless, and I don't want guilty pleasures, are there any, like, I would put this in like the better part. Are there any good good teen movies from this era? Because I didn't care for what's the one with Ryan Phillippe? I'm forgetting.
Cruel Intentions.
Cruel Intentions. I didn't care for that. I do have guilty pleasures. She's All That. I will defend that movie. I know the audiences and critics will disagree with me, and even Can't Hardly Wait. But are there, aside from Clueless?
From the mid to late 90s, I would say that maybe that was a time where we get a lot of those objectively bad teen movies. That is maybe why we get not another teen movie in 2001, because we had gotten so many of these subpar teen movies in a row. Right?
Because
it's like, oh my gosh,
movie is one of the best 90s/early 2000s teen movies.
Right, and he was drawing on all those 90s ones. Because now that I think about it, of course we get not another teen movie, because we had to suffer or audiences at least, we were too young, but audiences at the time had to suffer through like 4 or 5 years of just bad teen movies. Because I don't even remember, like, is 10 Things I Hate About You any good? I
Okay,
don't really.
no, that works. Okay, I did not think about that.
That one's
I was
good.
actually
Okay.
just going to ask, is that early 2000s or 90s? Because that is like an excellent, excellent teen movie.
99.
That's 99. 99.
Okay. That one's
Okay.
Okay.
Well, there you go then. That one's a good one. So, one of the few then, you could say.
I don't know if it counts, but Daria had like 2 TV movies that were great.
Daria is amazing, and I'm glad you mentioned that. That was definitely of this era. So Daria was like from 97 to 2002 was the finale movie. And if maybe we just talk about the teen genre in general, movies and TV, that's like top tier, basically. Love Daria.
But,
Daria,
yeah,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh,
Well,
Buffy, yeah.
we're
You
not
talk about
going
TV,
into
maybe.
TV, but like there were even like some horror movies like The Faculty, Disturbing Behavior with like a young Katie Holmes and James Marsden, and those are guilty pleasure. They're not like
Faculty.
they're not that good. And
Faculty is
I'll
pretty dumb, and it's very derivative of much better horror movies. But I mean, it's like very watchable because of how silly and dumb it is. It's like a B movie, basically. So yeah, that's a
yes,
guilty pleasure.
but The Craft I think is actually what it's trying to do, and it's not flawless. I actually think it's in that it's
Oh, it's very
it's a
flawed.
guilty pleasure while also being like a watchable movie.
I think the movie at the end of the day is on the better side of the fence. I think it is like it does end up being, I think, a good movie. It's just there's some inconsistencies and maybe not like the tightest plot of all, but in general I think what they were set out to do, I think the director definitely had a vision for this movie that came through. This movie definitely has like a personality to it,
Yes.
which is saying something, because how many movies do we watch, especially teen movies, that just come off as forgettable and generic? This is definitely memorable for good reasons. And I was thinking it too as a witch movie. There's all different kinds of witch movies in terms of genre and tone, right? And the way I would say, I like to set up as a scale from funny witches to super scary witches. And on the really funny side, you have Hocus Pocus, right? That's like the far end, silly, non-threatening, just like a lighthearted good time. And then that's like, let's say that's a 1. And then a 10 would be like Robert Eggers'
The
The
Witch.
right? Like the Vivitch, whatever, which is like super serious, very scary, disturbing movie. So that's like your extremes. So I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate The Craft as like a 4, right? There's like some edginess
Okay.
to it and some scary elements, but for the most part, it's like, again, fairly a lighthearted, easy watch. It's not going to give you nightmares or anything, but there's definitely some memorable moments that might give you some chills.
Without this movie, there would be no Charmed.
That's a good point. And Eric and I were talking about that actually watching this, and there are some connections because Charmed comes out just, I think, 1 or 2 years after this movie, and it also takes place in California, in San Francisco,
Wow,
where
that's
the
some
main
plagiarism
character
right there.
of this movie says she's from.
I didn't know that.
Some of the music, I think, also there's a song in the soundtrack of this movie that I think is the intro to Charmed, actually, and they also have like a similar look and feel to it. At least I've only seen the first season of Charmed, and it's also very fun. I would say even like pretty well written for what it's doing. So yeah, I think there definitely is a connection. I think maybe there is something to that. If this movie had at least some sort of, it did have success, not huge success, but
It's a sleeper
it
hit.
was a notable. It was a sleeper hit and made notable success. So yeah, maybe that inspired, hey, like some executives like we should do a TV show. Who knows?
I feel like you watched Hocus Pocus in grade school, and then you watched The Craft in high school. This movie is basically
Or middle
Mean
school.
Girls. This movie is basically Mean Girls meets Chronicle.
I was like, okay, Mean Girls meets Chronicle, or I don't know, The Lost Boys meets
Yes.
Heathers.
I like that. Yeah.
Put them in a boiling pot. Put them all in a boiling pot.
That's really great. Because you definitely, in terms of both tone and concepts and everything, I definitely see, again, maybe like in a witch's brew, if we're going with the theme, you throw these different sort of elements of other movies and you get something like this. So yeah, I really dig that.
Casting this in the 80s, Christian Slater would be Skeet Ulrich's part. Winona Ryder, I think, would probably be for the main character. Uh,
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
always
yeah.
I love that thought experiment, movies cast in different decades, that kind of thing. And I think this movie, I don't think like everyone's seen it, but I think like you said, it's a cult classic. I would recommend people watch it. I think it's a very good Halloween movie,
it's good for the
right?
season, yeah.
I think so. It's actually kind of strange though. So for me to watch this, I had to. It was like on demand on cable via the Freeform channel, which is like kind of interesting because that channel usually will air like Hocus Pocus or Edward Scissorhands or something. Again, more family friendly Halloween movies, Adam's Family. So for me, I'm like, The Craft is not really that family friendly. I would say it's like more, again, on an edgier side. So, for example, watching this via a freeform on demand, it was quite censored, right? They were like bleeping out a lot of the, not bleeping, but like muting a lot of the curse words in this. So I was just kind of confused. Like, is this going to be marketed now as a family friendly Halloween movie? Because I don't think it should be. I think that might remove some of the edginess that it does have.
Well, I think it's rated R, like when it came out.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't work at Freeform. I don't know. But isn't like Freeform's like brand like family friendly in the day and, a little bit edgy teen at night? Adult, not Adult
In the
Swim, but like
evening,
adult,
yeah,
and then Harry Potter
maybe.
marathons every other weekend. Uh,
Right. I don't want again this is not like the edgiest movie, but again, it's not like super family friendly. And I don't I'd just be curious what the future of this movie is if it's going to be, marketed in a way that was not originally intended.
well, I
So,
joined a cult because
we'll
of this
see.
movie. It led me down a right
I
path,
mean,
a
what
right path. Maybe by the next episode I'll find the error of my right ways. But yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
got in
hey,
with the wrong crowd.
if I know that crowd included me, if it revives, if it renews interest in this movie and it finds a new, more modern audience, then you know what? Hey, who am I to complain? Because I do think that people, for the most part, would enjoy this. Clearly, more audiences did because this sort of thing is. I don't know. I feel like critics will get hung up on certain things that audiences won't, which is why we see a lower critical score. But the critics who do give it a positive score, I think, you know, they see like the nuance behind it, and will say like the good outweighs the bad, even if it's by a little bit.
No more games, okay? Sarah, I'm so sorry. Good. I'm gonna go. One thing first. I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm. Harm against other people and harm against yourself. Wait. I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm. Harm against other people and harm against yourself. Wait. I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm. Harm against other people and harm against yourself. I bind you, Nancy.
So I think we can get now into our final scores here on The Craft. So let's start with Bridget. Take us home here. What's your final thought, and what would your percentage score be?
I think this movie, you're asking like where this movie might end up in terms of level of belovedness by the public. I think it will most likely always be a great cult classic for young Gen X, millennials, and Zoomers who are into like quote unquote older movies. I wished that I had seen this as a teenager because I would have loved it. It is super flawed, but I'm going to give it 75%.
Woo!
I will be not too far off from your score, but let's first go to Keith though. What's your final take?
The good outweighs the flaws, and I think they're. I think we kind of went in depth with that. The acting, how it leans into the world, for me personally, I think this movie speaks more to girls than guys, and it's not something I would like hop on right away. And I think I'm gonna give it a 62. Like it's passable. It is like campy, but it's a fun cult camp movie that is better than most teen movies.
That's fair. It's like above the average there, wherever that average is. Yeah, I'm gonna land on a 70%, because for one, I feel like I have a soft spot for this movie. Like we said before, there is something, pun intended, charming about it that wins me over. And I don't know. I think almost that it could be underrated at times, because I don't know. I don't know where this is coming from. It's hard for me to even articulate. I just really like this movie and will vouch for it and recommend it to people.
Bring back Fairuza Balk. I hope she gets a second wind. I miss her.
Right? I think
Come back.
she's really great. I love how dedicated she is in this movie, and that alone is a reason to see it and admire it. I mean, just a movie that in the opening credits, you know what you're in for. I respect, right? Just the first second you turn in, it's like, okay, I know what I'm getting, and it delivers that. So there I am at a 70%. And so Keith, what's our final score?
A very lovable 69.
Nice.
I mean, that's how it comes out.
I love that. Not the first time I think we landed on a 69 for some reason. I don't know why that keeps happening, but again, who am I to fight against fate if that's the number that we land on? So I hereby decree that on The Craft, we officially side with the audience. So make sure, everyone, you add that to your Halloween movie roster. You'll be glad you did. It definitely fits in perfectly. Bridget, thank you again.
Thank you
again for joining us for this. It's always great having you on.
Happy to be here. I wouldn't have seen this movie without this podcast. So thank you so much. I loved it.
I really had a feeling that you'd like it. So, I'm glad that I was able to get you to watch this and discuss it with you. Guys, thank you for listening. We have more scary movies lined up for the month of October, so look out for those. But until then, guys, thanks a lot.